Hello friends, neighbors, John your Whiskey neighbor here, and welcome down to the Nook and happy Robbie Burns Day. I hope you are celebrating the national poet of Scotland in some way. Usually Robert Burns Night will have all kinds of neeps and tatties and haggis and Scotch eggs wrapped in sausage like that. Like, it's just a wonderful experience of Scottish culture through food. I don't have any of that, but I do have Scotch. And I've read that Robert Burns spent a lot of time working and living in the lowland area. And I thought maybe every year I'll open a lowland Scotch. So I just went out and bought this Lindores. It's their entrance dram, 1494 in Roman numerals. Just opened it on, the short with you guys. We'll get into it. We'll talk about this. I'll make a fool of myself trying to read a little piece of Robert Burns. And then I want to talk about what we might be missing in education. I want to talk about poetry. 3, 4. Just to be clear, if you've come back with that, I am not going to read poetry because I am not very poetic. But I will later on. I want to talk about what I think our education system is starting to lack. But for now, I want to talk Scotch. And why? Because that's why we're here. We get together weekly or so to talk whiskey, and I love it. Helps me relax. It's an area that I am passionate about. This particular bottle, this Lindores Abbey Distillery, I believe they released their first Scotch in 2021. So, they're rebuilding. They're committed to restoring many parts of the Abbey. And what's interesting is this is their first release. It's the 1494 in Roman numerals. And the reason why they're referenced way back there is not that the distillery ran for long there, but some of the earliest references to Scotch or aquavite or what would be whiskey like that is around that abbey and around 1494. Haven't dug enough into that history to give it to you authoritatively, but that's why they're linking it there. And this particular bottle, that our first release is an integrity release. It doesn't say it on the bottle, but it was easy to find. Natural color, non-chill filter, 46%. Now there's a lot of casks in here. There is ex-bourbon, ex-sherry, and an ex-wine. And sometimes I find early releases, because they're younger, lean heavy into cask. So we're going to get into the liquid and see where it goes. But before we do that, it is Robbie Burns Day today. It is January 25th, his birthday. Perfect time to celebrate Robert Burns and Scotland. The only poem I really know is Auld Lang Syne. I've sung it on New Year's. It's been fun. I heard somewhere recently that it is like the after Happy Birthday, it's the next most sung song, which is interesting. But I thought, no, what I want to do when I held this bottle, this is where I embarrass myself. Just skip ahead and we'll get back to Scotch in a moment. But I thought, this actually, if it doesn't leak, looks a little bit like a haggis. Haggis is that plump, it's usually lamb parts and oats. I think you can do it with beef. Kind of like a really thick sausage. And I looked at this bottle and I went, oh my goodness, this looks like a haggis. So I am going to fully embarrass myself and try to read the first verse. It goes on for pages of Toast to a Haggis. Now, know that I have no Scottish in my history that I'm aware of. I didn't grow up listening to Scottish relatives, so I have no clue how to sound. I have no Gaelic in my background. That's why please do not be offended. If you are from those areas, I mean no offense, but when you try to pronounce the poem as I have, it'll sound like I'm trying to be that. I'm just terrible. So, this, I feel, looks like a haggis. Fair fa, ye honest sunny face, great chieftain o' the pudding race, upon ye take your place. Panch, tripe, term, well, are ye worthy of a grace as long as my arm? Hope you skipped that. So, coming back to this Scotch, I was starting to talk about that there are a lot of casks in here. Sometimes I feel that's trying to cover up for a distillate that needs time. But I did see on their website that you can buy new make. So I think they just have good casks or these casks, and for them, this was the right blend. It is a single malt, which means all barley and from just the Lindores Abbey distillery, but it has a variety of casks. On the nose, quite sweet. Lots of fruits, sweet stone fruits, peaches, perhaps a little bit of that sherry fruitness. Yeah, more fruits. Now there's a light sugar, a little light toffee. So, we've got that interplay of vanillins from ex-bourbons and we've got fruits, whether that's from the wine or from the ex-sherry. But it's interesting that the fruits for me were more like apricot and peaches, less like, plum, raisin, that kind of thing. It is golden and it kind of noses a bit golden, maybe golden raisins. Nice and sweet, fruity. Let's try this one on the palate. Sláinte to your health and cheers to the Bard. That has a little more body, a little more substance. The nose was quite light, but the palate, early thoughts, just open it. I've got lots of malt. For me, malt often comes off, slightly grainy or a little bit oatmeal-y or a little graham cracker. Those kinds of things I try to describe when I'm feeling a younger distillate, a little more barley husk, a little more grain. It's got a fair amount of that. Sweetness comes on the longer edge, and perhaps the next sip. Sláinte. Pretty clean on that one. Still staying pretty core to malt. And it's interesting to me that their selection of casks gave more fruits into the nose than it did in the body of the spirit for my first tastes. The nose continues to be sweet and light. It's leaning a little bit more into that golden raisin. It's trading now into, like, when I say fig, I'm usually following it with like plum raisin, and that's not it at all. Here, when I say fig, it's like that lighter, sweeter. Yep, the nose is all the fruits, the palate. There, I got a little more unification of the fruit into that malty, grainy body, which is good. It's not grainy bad. It's not grainy bitter, mechanical, any of those things. It's just, this has to be pretty young. Like, it has to be, I don't know, 4 years. I'm just ballparking it. It's good young distillate. It's got good body, lovely nose. Actually, I think the nose is its strength. And I'm happy that I brought it home. It was 15% off to celebrate Robbie Burns Day at Sobeys. They had 15% off all their scotch, so it was a little easier to pick up and bring home. What's my thoughts? Well, look, this is my first thoughts. I just opened up this bottle, and so while I've given you some of the character that I'm getting, there's just no way I could give any kind of rating. I need to have it over different times and whatnot, take some notes and cut it with water and all those things we like to do as tasters. So it's good. It's starting well. It's integrity release. I'm glad I have a Lindores on the shelf. So if you want to stay with me, one of the things I wanted to say, and I was thinking about it because of Robert Burns. Robert Burns, 250 years later, like we celebrate him. And why? One of the reasons is because his poetry rang a chord with the people and continues to inspire and be celebrated. And I'm an educator. I wish I was teaching in the classroom. Sadly, I'm an administrator now, and I feel a little far from that spark of igniting young minds, which was absolutely why I got into it. But I see trends, and certainly in my province in Alberta, the trends are very, very practical, and we need practical education. I'm not against that at all. I'm super happy that our district is doing innovative stuff, getting kids actually building houses or learning onto their private pilot's license or working in concrete fields. That's critical. But what I do worry about is we seem to be walking away from other dimensions of education. And I would suggest writing wonderful poetry, even beautiful prose, like just good writing, and fine arts, wonderful music. I can't think of what inspires me more than, my heart being tugged by a beautiful chorus. And there are poems that I have heard read or I read myself. I'm tearing up. But it's not just about emotional response. Times are tough. Times are hard. And we need to work hard and get through it. Don't get me wrong. I hope I've imparted that to my kids. And it's critical that we're practical in what we do. But we also need courage. We also need ways to inspire each other. We also need ways to lift each other up. And so often that comes from all of those other non-practical things. Music, poetry, beautiful writing, even making beautiful scotch, I want to suggest, is an art form. And well, I think we got to be very careful with this powerful liquid of life. I just want to say, on this particular Robert Burns Day, I've been thinking a lot about education. He's a poet. We celebrate him and his work and the inspiration he can have. I think we need to keep celebrating poets. We need to keep celebrating artists. We need to keep listening to music, building music, stopping and gathering and hearing music, making it together. I am sad that I see less and less of that, both from our leaders and in our schools and in our community life. I hope we get it back. I hope you get together on Robbie Burns night tonight. Share at least a scotch, if not a very plump haggis. You guys take care. Cheers to the bar.